Alright, doing a little bit more work to the Roadster today. Today we're working on the Distributor. Nothing wrong with this distributor actually. It's an OEM stock points type distributor. It works great actually. But I am upgrading it to the electronic distribution. Replacing that, wires, coil back here, and see how that goes. Should give us a little bit hotter spark, a little bit more consistent, no adjustment of points, things like that. Let's take a look at what we got. All this from East Coast Roadsters. Great guy, Tom over there. Got new wires, handle a little bit higher voltages, and wiring for the distributor. And take a look. Shiny new cap. There she is. Little tiny 4-cylinder cap. Get that out of there. Let's see, I think a coil. Very generic ignition coil. Other than that, pretty much, other than a model number on the bottom, pretty generic. But I bet you it works great. And our distributor itself. Take a quick look. Shiny and new. East Coast Roadsters does these up basically custom 1 by 1, so they are good to go. Our ignition module on the side, and yeah, all set, ready to go. Looks like fun. All right, let's start this assembly. Okay, at this point we have taken the cap off the distributor, taken the vacuum lines off that runs from the advance to the carburetor, and we've taken out our spark plugs, and I did take off the valve cover just so we can make sure that when we are lining things up that we can definitely tell that our engine is at top dead center on number 1 over here. So yeah, so let's keep going. Okay, at this point I am just looking for a way to spin over the engine to line up cylinder number 1 up here, well, in there, you know, with top dead center. Now the crank pulley bolt, which is down that away, is 27 millimeter. The only 27 millimeter I have is an impact socket, which is too long to fit between the shroud of the fan and the crank pulley bolt. I don't have anything that would fit in between, so I think I'm going to have to remove the fan and the shroud in order to get in there, which is more than I wanted to do, but hey, it is what it is. So that's what I'm working on next. All right, got her in. I had to use a regular ratchet because the breaker bar was too thick, too close to the radiator. But we are able to, wow, that's my finger, move the engine now. All right, so That looks better for us. Because now we can see, I don't know if you can see in that hole, but top of the piston is up. If we look at our camshaft, both our lobes are not pushing on our springs, so our valves are closed. And down over here we have timing marks aligned. And now we know we're pointing at the number 1 cylinder on the, here's the cap here. This is where we were. I had labeled these earlier. You can see spark plug number 1 right here. Trace that back, goes this guy, which our distributor rotor is pointing to number 1 at this point. Number 1 is on this side. Okay, so we know we're in the right spot. Okay, so next thing we need to do is just take the distributor out. We got one little screw right here. Okay, it's also an adjustment screw, but after that's removed, that'll come right out. Okay, let's do it. There. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is orient the coupler right here from our old one. Let's grab the new one real quick. And these come disassembled, and I couldn't really figure out why at first. After looking at these directions about 20 times, I realized what it was saying. It said it didn't know what orientation your little coupler had to go in, and I couldn't figure out why. They already have a set hole here with a shaft in the middle to go through. Why wouldn't this coupler just go on and be aligned? And after reading 20 times that this is an offset coupler, so that it only goes in one way. And what that means is that if you look carefully at this shaft in the middle, this little tang here, it's not centered. It's actually off just a little bit left or right from center. It's really hard to see. But then we need to look down into our distributor shaft hole here, down to where it integrates with the crankshaft, to see which way that goes. And I can see down in there that it looks like it's offset towards the rear of the car. Alright, so then when we put this onto our new distributor, which goes like this, we need the offset to be towards the rear. Alright, this is an awkward place to do it, so I'm going to do this off camera. Alright, and we're back here. I have this attached. Now there's a little dowel pin in here that holds it. We have it aligned so that the offset is towards the rear of the car in this case. We have a dowel pin in here that's floating that we need to slide this little spring around, and there's this little coil of wire here. It needs to slide up around this pin without letting it fall out. And I might need a pair of pliers. One moment. Let's see if I can get this here. I'm just going to slide this screwdriver in there just to slide this spring up towards the pin. There's a couple of strands on. There we go. Okay, so that goes around and floats so our little dowel pin doesn't slide out. Okay, so realigning our rotor. Got a little arrow on top. We know that's our pointing to our #1 cylinder, which is towards the rear driver's side. Slide her back in. We do have a little seal here that looks good to me. Alright, so after consulting the instructions, they do suggest replacing this seal here. And since they do provide one in the kit, then we will. One thing I didn't realize also, there's timing marks right on this little bezel here. I'm just cleaning those off so they're easier to see later on. Let's get this seal out of here. Yeah, it looks good, but it feels a little stiff. So let's put the new one in. Yeah, a little bit of oil in here. Okay, good to go on that guy. And now with our rotor facing the right way, as we said, towards #1 piston, we can install. And the instructions said it would be tight with the new seal, which, I don't know, kind of makes me feel good. Maybe should put the seal on first. Let's see how that works. And give me a little more lubrication on there. Borrow some oil from the head here. And let's try again. Okay, take this rotor off for a sec. Definitely tighter. Okay, let's get this 10mm started. This distributor is a little bit wider than the stock one, so I won't be able to get a ratchet on this, but I can get an open end if I could get it threaded at some point. Not cross-threaded, just regular threaded. Thank you very much. No need to tighten this down. Well, maybe if I tighten it down a little bit, it'll seal that oil seal a little bit better. I feel like it has a little bit of room to compress a little more than it is now. Okay, just back it off a little bit so it has some room to spin. This was roughly in the middle before. I'll start there. Okay, good on that spot. What's next? Okay, so just as following the manual here, setting the initial timing. There is obviously the main screw or bolt that we just took out that took out the whole distributor here, which can be adjusted for timing, but there's also the initial timing where there's an 8mm bolt on the back side to adjust the timing internally here, and basically just lining up these tips. This is the reluctor, and the stator is this outside edge. So we got tips here and tips there. These need to be aligned, which they are. Pretty happy with that. I didn't have to change anything. It was already set that way from the manufacturer, so we're good there. Hello. There we go. Okay, so now we can go ahead and put our wires on. Making sure this goes one direction, and it does. We have a notch on this side over here, and see the notch here, and no notch over here. So that aligns. And we can get our snaps solid. Okay, and the next thing we need to do actually, I need to re-gap these spark plugs to wider gaps. Since we have more juice flowing through them, we can have a wider spark gap. Be right back. Okay, went ahead and gapped the spark plugs. Couldn't find any of my spark plug gap tools anywhere. Had to pull out the feeler gauges. Luckily, the first 4 feelers came out to be just about perfect, just under 40 thou. So those are all gapped in there and seem pretty good. Had to open up just a little bit, not too much, so we should be good to go. The range they specify is like 0.39 to, or 0.039 to 0.043. So we should be right in the middle there. Should be good to go. Okay, I am running out of battery power, it looks like, on the GoPro, so let's get this moving with our wires. And then we will hit the coil in a minute. Here is 1, 4, 2, 3. Okay, it goes this way. 1, 3, 4, 2. 1, 3, 4, 2. Okay, so that one goes there. This one goes here. This one goes there. Next up, let's tackle the coil. Now here we have the harness for the distributor, plugs in back over here. I'm just going to tape up these wires and then put some loom on this to make it a little nice and pretty. Okay, so this is flex loom. This is the braided kind. So you can see this is not split. This is braided so you can make it wider by compressing, and hopefully we can get these ends through there. Perfect. Okay, so now let's take care of the resistor, which is down here. We need to basically bypass the resistor, so we have a wire here that goes an input from the key, basically, ignition wire, and that'll be 12 volts in, and after the resistor that would be 8-9 volts out. Basically we want to move this wire, this input wire, and just connect them together on the same terminal over here. So we'll do that real quick. Now our coil, we can take those terminals off. 10 mil, yes. Now we have 4 wires basically. We have the 2 we just loomed up that go to the distributor. These will go on to these terminals. And we also have these 2 guys. One of them comes, not sure why, goes back into this harness and comes right back out again. And so this was from the resistor. This black one is from the ignition cylinder. They are pretty much doing the exact same thing at this point. So I'm going to actually replace these terminals and tie them together since they're going to the same place. Okay. Positive side towards the firewall. Good to go on there. Let's hook up our ignition module, which just plugs in to the top of the ignition module, no problem. Okay, we got our 2 wires here. And 2 lock nuts. Stuck myself. Let's do that. Just going to do these by hand and then use, well, we'll see. That's kind of tight. Nice and tight. This guy is also nice and tight. I'm going to move this harness to follow the other harness. All right, next, coil wire. Okay, got this guy. This one. Let's see. Yeah, I think the shorter one goes that way. It's a little long, but it's okay. We'll do that so it's nice and wires aren't touching each other. Such. I like it. Okay, next thing we're going to do is open the garage door, which we've done, and we're going to see if we can get her started. We're going to check out the timing. Got our timing light handy. Let me just show you timing marks real quick. So down on the crank pulley, you can see there's 5 timing marks there, 5 degrees each. Okay, the biggest one is 0. So you should be able to see those. You can see the pointer on the front of the engine. That is our reference. Okay, so let's see if we can get her started and adjust the timing a little bit. Alright, first try to start, and we'll let her warm up. Up and at idle we're only at about 10 degrees right now. A little hard to see on the camera. Let's advance a little more. See how that goes. So all in all, running really well now. Not that it wasn't running well before, but running really well now, for sure. You feel a little bit of difference. Looks good, so I think we're good on the electronic ignition. Till next time, see ya.